Alright, so today me and Nikhil are going to be talking about the economic differences in Eastern and Western Germany, and it'll be a study in command versus market economies. So, to give you a little pretext about what we're going to be talking about, following World War II, Germany was split into two countries, Western Germany and Eastern Germany. Western Germany was controlled by Western countries like France, Britain, and the United States, whereas the East was controlled by a Soviet bloc headed by the USSR. Now, this kind of dictated which economy they would follow in the next 30 or so years. The West would follow a market economy, and the East would follow a command economy.
So, what are each of those? The command economy is pretty simple. Basically, the government controls everything. They set production quotas for different industries, and they set prices. Basically, complete government control. On the other hand, a market economy is the government saying, "I'm not going to do anything," or "Hey, you might not even have a government." Anyway, basically, it involves suppliers and consumers, essentially supply and demand balancing out until you reach some point or some relative area where they're both willing to buy. It's supply and demand, Adam Smith's invisible hand, all that good stuff that the United States has subscribed to all these years.
Yep, so we're going to be talking about the effects kind of chronologically of how each of these economies affected their respective countries. So, Nikhil, you want to start off with West Germany?
Yeah, so West Germany in the immediate post-war environment, they weren't doing too hot. Farm production had gone down, and they weren't receiving as much exports of or imports of food from Eastern Germany because the two countries were split. Um,
Shocking.
there's the situation is basically set up for massive inflation because of an excessive money supply combined with price controls, and also the U.S., UK, and France were taking resources from German factories as part of war reparations.
Yeah,
All in
and
all, not great.
yeah, and like a kind of similar thing is happening in East Germany at this time, but the Soviets. So Soviet influence in East Germany was essentially taking industry and shipping it back to Russia, much like the Allies were doing in West. Um, and another key part of their early early industrial plan was to collectivize
Collectivized?
everything. Essentially, take all private businesses and turn them into communes where people could work and provide, and the workers would own everything, and it would all be good and dandy. But it didn't work out that way, did it?
Good joke, am I right? Um, anyway, so what did West Germany do early on in terms of their major policies? The first big one was replacing their currency, getting rid of the old currency used by the Nazis. The exact process of how they did it was complex, but the overall change contracted the money supply by 93%, which, if you know anything about economics, and even if you don't, you can probably guess, helps a lot with inflation when you decrease the amount of money that's in the economy. Price controls were also removed at the same time, which allowed prices to reach the actual values they should be based on supply and demand. So more suppliers were willing to enter the market. All in all, good stuff. The West German government also lowered taxes greatly on pretty much the entire population, both at the top and even for like median Germans, their tax rates went down greatly.
Yeah, and so to parry that, if you will, this Eastern Germany basically continued with their post-war decline. So they instituted a 5-year long plan that was supposed to help the economy and get it back running like the perfect socialist state it was gonna be. I promise, I swear, guys, just give it some time. Essentially,
Johnny
they
Stalin says so.
created like people's collective agriculture and industry, and these quote unquote industries produced quotas for goods needed in the Soviet Union as well as Eastern Germany. Um, Still very strictly regulated by the Soviets. There is no supply and demand. Don't think about it like that. You'll hurt your brain. You have to have common sense to realize this is a bad thing. So essentially, Eastern Germany was functioning off of a direct command economy, and things were not going well. People were fleeing, people were starving, people were getting shipped off to Siberia for long winter vacations. But the economy was not doing well.
And yeah, West Germany was the exact opposite. Thanks to the policies I talked about earlier, contracting the money supply, and getting rid of price controls and all that. Basically, the West German economy was set up to boom. This led to what's called the Miracle on the Rhine, or some German word that I don't really want to pronounce. There was a lot of statistics, but essentially, the Western German economy boomed. Production was up, trade was up, living standards increased. Basically, West Germany was like, "Hey, that's a good economy."
Yeah, and the East saw this too. They weren't so dumb that they couldn't look over their border. And essentially, they saw, oh, wait a minute, our people are starving. Our people are fleeing to work in West Germany. Maybe, just maybe, privatization might help our little socialist society. And
Doesn't sound
so,
very Stalinist of you.
hey, he's dying. Trust me, bro. Uh, so, essentially, what they did is they started allowing for some privatization of some industries, and believe it or not, we saw some increases in real GDP, and the economy started to improve. Things like GDP per capita and general living standards started to increase due to this privatization, which is not to say that it was nearly as good as Western Germany, simply better than a direct command economy.
Would you believe it?
I
Um, Yeah, so the Miracle on the Rhine essentially lasted for around 10 years, from 1950 to 1960. The exact dates can vary, but after 1960, the West German economy continued to grow. At one point, unemployment was at 1%, which essentially means there was a lot of production. So they were doing pretty well. Um, Obviously, it wasn't perfect. As with any market economy, there were some blips in the road. But overall, the West German economy continued on an upward trend, and by the time of reunification, they had one of the largest economies in the world. Pretty good.
Yeah, and the East, realizing the folly of their early mistakes, yet not all of their follies, decided that perhaps pure communism, socialism, wasn't going to work. So, what they did instead is they instituted this kind of half market economy, half command, where yes, there were still quotas, and yes, there were still lots and lots of price controls. However, there was no direct control of the market, or not as much as there had been, and because of this, the economy improved. Not a lot, but it improved to the point where Eastern Germany was able to survive and almost, just almost, be self sufficient. Where Western Germany and their
Wow.
market economy was taking off, this economy really just kind of struggled to survive. But good news, real wages did increase, supply of consumer goods did as well, and privatization kind of kept the command economy alive
A
for
Yugo
the
versus a
moment.
Lamborghini or something.
Yeah, no, you couldn't afford anything, but it was alive. You
No, I
could
was
eat
just saying
bread.
the economy is like East Germany is like a Yugo or something, and
Yeah,
West Germany is like a
yeah,
Lamborghini.
West Germany was doing pretty hot. All right,
Yeah.
well, I think
Um.
that's up to the reunification. So you want to talk about some big picture stuff?
Yeah. So overall, the West Germany's attempt to basically centralize industry ultimately just did not work at all. Um, in contrast, West German economy, well, they did pretty well, didn't they? I mean,
Yeah,
I remember reading somewhere. I think at one time they had the fourth largest GDP in the world. I think that was around 1990. So yeah, they kind of they did pretty well.
yeah. I mean, when you contrast the East is East Germany's command economy with West Germany's market, it's really quite easy to see the effects that each one has. Essentially, the command economy attempting to, you know, centralize and
Control everything.
nationalize every industry ultimately hurt everyone and crippled economic growth both in the long and short term. Every attempt for them to centralize led to either a large decrease in productivity or other economic indicators going down, such as GDP and inflation. And the only increases they ever saw were due to decentralization, like the second 5 year plan and such. But it really just goes to show that decentralization really is the way economies work.
Yeah, market economy good, command economy bad is like the summary of this.
Yeah, there you go. 5 word summary. That's not 5 words, but it's close.
Six. Yeah, good enough.
There we go. All
Yeah,
right.
so I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's it. All right. Well, I hope you guys have not fallen asleep yet. I hope you enjoyed, and that's all for us today.
All right, bye.
Bye.